Thank you.
Bien, pues vamos a dar paso a la sesión de preguntas y respuestas de los medios. Tenemos alguien por acá, alguien que me indique, sí, para que tengan los micrófonos, por favor. ¿Ya tienen alguien allá? Adelante. ¿Me das tu nombre y el medio al que representas, por favor, si todos ustedes nos presentamos?
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes, hola, de CineNT.com. Bueno, pues haciendo un poco de historia. Ahí, ya. Bueno, haciendo un poco de historia, solo en esta cuestión de los Oscars, Orson Welles y Charles Chaplin ha sido nominado en cuestión de guión y actor. ¿Cómo se siente Sylvestre Stallone en este ámbito y además también a lo largo de su historia? ¿Qué disfruta más en la cuestión de rodaje, en el set o en la locación?
A ver, ¿me puedes repetir tu nombre?
Rolando Martínez.
¿De qué medio?
CineNT.com.
Ok, la primera parte de la pregunta, porque con el problema de audio no te pude captar.
¿Me escuchas ahí?
Sí, perfecto.
Esta onda de hacer un poco de historia a lo largo de las nominaciones del Oscar, solo Orson Welles, Charles Chaplin y Sylvestre Stallone han estado nominados en la categoría de guión y actor. ¿Qué siente en esta cuestión? Y la segunda parte de la pregunta es ¿qué disfruta de sus filmaciones más filmar en locación o en set?
Hi. Okay, he's asking which thing do you enjoy more, being in the set or at the locations? That's the first part of the question. And he says that Orson Welles and Chaplin, they were nominated for the Oscars with as script writers and actors, and you were also nominated. What do you feel about this?
Whether I like the set or location.
Sí, es que es lo mismo set y locación. Sería...
No, sí.
Set or location. Set or location.
There's nothing better than working on a location because it's more realistic. You get the sense that you're actually performing in a real film as opposed to a set, which can be fantasy and not quite as inspiring. And as for Orson Welles and Charlie Chaplin, when I heard that, I was incredibly humbled, and I realized how important it is to tell young actors and directors the power of writing, because if I could do it, that was something that could be an example for someone else, because that's how I got here, not through acting, but through writing.
Todos escuchamos, ¿verdad? Okay. Siguiente pregunta. Sí. A ver, por allá.
Buenas noches. Juan Manuel Badilla, Sylvestre de prensa. Soy muchos años ya en el ring, en el cine, la verdad. ¿No se daría tiempo de retirar a Rocky Balboa de los escenarios del ring, de sacarlo de oficial? Esa es la pregunta.
If you're thinking about retiring Rocky Balboa. The character, yes.
What about
Yes, about retiring him.
retiring?
Retiring him. Yeah.
Retiring, yes. It was very, that was actually, I'll tell you why. You said retiring. It was very, very difficult. The day we ended Rocky Balboa, it was on the steps and the snow was coming down. It's really the most important scene in the movie. And I got very, very, very sad, very depressed, because very rare, or maybe never, do you find a character like that to play, where I can express every thought, every philosophical idea I had. But then I said I had to turn it around, getting too depressed about this. And I said, this has got to be a great day, because This character lasted 36 years, and here it is. And it's ending with snow. It's fantastic, so it's a minor miracle. So it was a good day and a horrible day. And we're also, what we're talking about, doing a little bit more with Rocky. There's a film coming out called Creed, based on one of the characters of Rocky, Apollo Creed. And he was Rocky's best friend, and he died in Rocky IV. And Apollo Creed's grandson wants to come back, and the only person that he can help him would be Rocky, who is now much older and not in very good health. And it becomes this father-son situation, which I thought would be very interesting because it's not a Rocky movie, but the character is still here for a young generation, 2 generations that weren't even born when it came out. So it's amazing how long the character is going. And then in March, the Broadway play opens of Rocky Balboa. So this character has been a minor miracle all the way.
Aquí por acá.
Muy buenas tardes, Eduardo Gutiérrez del periódico Milenio. Me gustaría saber si podría hablar un poco más acerca de la película que dice que pretende filmar aquí en México, saber si ya tiene la trama, qué actores te gustaría que estuvieran con él, y también conocer un poco acerca de la serie de televisión que va a retomar Rambo y que él va a ser productor.
La película que pretende filmar aquí en México? Okay. If you can talk about the movie you're pretending to film here in Mexico. Y la segunda parte?
La parte de la serie de televisión de Rambo,
and
que va a producir.
The TV series also.
Rambo. You talk about Rambo? Yeah, Rambo, right? Right. Yeah, there is a chance, a small chance, that we may do a Rambo. Very small, because I've always wanted to do one in Mexico. And it's a natural place to do it because Rambo lives in Arizona, right on the border. So it'll be very, very close. But if that happens or doesn't happen, there's still the idea there's a Rambo television series that I would be helping to produce that has a very good chance of being done in Mexico. So a lot of it. So we're looking forward to working in this part of the world very soon.
That would be the Rocky the musical. ¿Sí?
Rocky the musical, yes, same one.
Acá, otra, por favor.
¿Qué tal? De este lado, over here. Mi nombre es Manuel Tejeda, del periódico Reforma. Quisiera preguntarle cómo va o cómo terminó la filmación de Los Indestructibles 3, y también quisiera saber qué le gusta más, que lo recuerden como sus viejos personajes o quisiera ser un nuevo personaje que quede en la memoria de toda la gente.
Qué gacho, me están aventando de a 3 preguntas en una. Ok. ¿Que cómo terminó la de los indestructibles? Sí, ¿cómo terminó la grabación? ¿Y la segunda parte?
¿Cómo le gusta recuerden más con los personajes anteriores o va a ser algún nuevo?
Ah, perfecto. Okay. He wants to know how was the Expendables filming, how was it going, and how would you like to be remembered with an old character or with a new one?
Well, of course, I'd like to be remembered with the old character because I doubt I'll ever find anything like Rambo or Rocky again. It's very, very rare. And the Expendables, which is now the 3rd one, is by far the best one. In the first one, we weren't sure what we were doing. Is it a drama? Is it more comedy? And we were experimenting. It was very, very difficult. We didn't have a lot of money or a lot of time. Then the second one, we brought in Arnold and Bruce and more characters and made it a little bit more comedy. And I think we made it too funny or too silly sometimes. Even though the action was okay, it just didn't have the right tone. This one, we now brought in many actors like Mel Gibson and Antonio Banderas and Harrison Ford and Wesley Snipes, his first film in 3 or 4 years. So this film, and 5 young, new Expendables, and myself. So this one here has all the potential of being by far the best. It's the most expensive, the biggest, and I think it's the most soulful one, has the most emotion to it. So this one, I think, is going to be fantastic.
Good. From La Lota. Why did you choose Robert De Niro for being in your movie? There's a lot of action hero movies, and you choose him. Why is that?
You mean for Grudge Match?
Exactly.
Well, the idea is that if you can take two iconic characters, if I can call it that, and bring them up to 2014, that would be kind of interesting. And the characters that I've always been compared to, they'd always say, can Rocky beat Raging Bull? Rocky beat Raging Bull? And I would say it's ridiculous because, of course, Rocky can beat Raging Bull because Rocky is fantasy, you know, so you can't hurt him, right? But then we thought, what an interesting idea for a movie to take these men, because men, no matter how old they get, especially if they've been athletes, inside they still feel the fire of competition. But these two characters have messed up their whole life. They've been bad in relationships, they had drinking problems, they spent all their money. So now, this is a movie about going back and fixing all the mistakes they made and having this one last battle over this girl that broke them up originally. So it's an very interesting movie, and the fight's pretty good. And we did a lot of training, and it's probably the last time I'm ever going to put on gloves again, which is kind of sad. I enjoy it. But that is it. I thought, you know, Robert De Niro is such an iconic actor. He's known for Raging Bull. He won the Oscar. And Rocky won the Oscar, so I thought this would be perfect.
And what about the new generations that are in movies, in action movies? Because you work with a lot of your generation. But what about the new? What do you think about it?
I think the new ones are, some of them are really good actors, even better actors than some of the action guys that I came up with. And because they've had more training, or they didn't start out, the key is, they didn't start out to be an action actor. They actually trained to be actors. Then they had a chance, like Robert Downey and Iron Man. They're about a serious actor. Then these other characters that really trained, and then they became action actors. And so it makes the acting pretty good. The difference is, it's not as, it's physical, but not as difficult as it was in the 70s and 80s and 90s, because there was very little CGI or no CGI. Like in Cliffhanger or in Rambo, you just did it. If there was fire, you ran from fire. There was a lot of accidents, or you fall off a horse, or you fall off a real horse. But I think there's a lot of young men that really want to prove themselves, because I think men always want to prove themselves, and action films are a great way to do it. But it's very, 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 very difficult to find a good action actor. It's very hard. It's not as simple as you think. It's not just about fighting. Fighting is easy. Karate is this, and jiu-jitsu and all that. That's not action. Action is a character that the people will sit there and watch over and over and over again and like him. In other words, relate to him. Sometimes you can just be interested and watch the fight, but they don't get you. Then you have some character. There's only been 3 or 4 that's ever happened that kind of the audience really sympathized with them on a different level. Not just action, but emotionally. That's what's hard to find. Right.
de Graham Norton, el de la BBC.
What's your opinion about Breaking Bad, if you saw Breaking Bad, and the second was about Graham Norton? A ver.
Bryan Cranston, el actor que acaba de ganar el Globo de Oro, que fue protagonista de Breaking Bad, declaró algo muy parecido a él, a lo que declaró él, que nunca iba a tener un personaje como el de Walter White, el de la serie. Quería preguntarle si vio Breaking Bad, si vio el trabajo de Bryan Cranston, si es difícil para un actor encontrar precisamente ese personaje.
Did you saw the series of Breaking Bad and this guy, what's his name? Bryan Cranston. Perdón, es que se está viendo el de atrás, pero perdón, pero no la vi, no lo conozco, sorry. Entonces, y quiero saber. Do you feel the same about Rocky, about the protagonist of Breaking Bad? If you feel the same, speaking of what you were saying.
About Rocky and Breaking Bad, the similarity, you mean?
She wants to know about what you think about the character. The actor who plays Breaking Bad says something like you said before, that it's very difficult to find a character in this level. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, Bryan Cranston. Yeah. See, Breaking Bad and Bryan Cranston and the character they developed is genius. It's brilliant because it has so many emotional layers, and you see this man literally go from an intellectual to becoming a physical, really a dark character, and he takes you along, and the family, his children, and his partner. It's extraordinary. So I think that's a perfect example of taking a very, very serious actor and moving him into, he almost becomes an action guy. You know, he becomes very, very, very interesting and physical. So I have nothing but tremendous respect for Bryan Cranston and Breaking Bad. Great show.
Hi, Mr. Stallone over here. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about tabloids and the showbiz press? I think every time it's getting more and more invasive, and maybe you save yourself because you're not on the spotlight as you were in the 80s and the 90s. How do you feel now about paparazzis and I don't think personal questions about your life instead of your work?
I gotta be careful what I say. Wow. I think that it's every profession has a certain kind of difficulty that comes with it, and my difficulty, like the bankers have, you know, they're constantly being audited, there's people coming up or whatever, you know, politicians are always having their problems. Well, when you're an actor, unfortunately, what comes is your privacy is gone. That's part of the deal. You sign that contract, it's like you give up a piece of your soul. And the thing is, how can you try to be philosophical about it. For example, when you go out of the house, if you say no pictures, no pictures, no pictures, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So I say to anyone with a paparazzi, just keep smiling because you can't criticize the smile. You go, good morning, how you doing? See you around. And they get bored. They get bored. They want you to go crazy. You know, they're like, that's what it is. I understand it. They want that one where we go, shah! Thank you. You know, good morning. Thank you very much. It's not easy, believe me. Sometimes I know. I've lost it a few times. But it's all right. You know, it's publicity too. You can take it and make it bad, or you can make it good. But the paparazzi, they serve a good purpose at times. But they can drive me crazy too.
Tenemos uno allá atrás.
César Huerta del Universal. Me gustaría preguntar ¿qué se siente matar en cine? Y digo, a principios de año se hizo una encuesta, un estudio en el que se decía que él era el tercer actor con mayor número de asesinatos en el cine, solamente rebasado por Schwarzenegger y por Shaw Clark. Quería saber eso y bueno, ¿cómo se desenvuelve en la comedia un actor como él? Digo, se recuerda en Oscar, Tango y Cash, bueno, esta última que con Robert De Niro.
He's from Universal. What do you feel about killing somebody in the movies, in the film industry?
What I feel about killing somebody?
Yeah.
Wonderful, very good. Better than me.
And how do you feel doing comedy?
With what?
Comedies. Like
Comedy?
Yes.
Oh, well, comedy is the medicine that everybody needs to get through life. So it's very, very important. And to come up with a great comedy is fun. That's why I like when I did Grudge Match with De Niro. There's a lot of comedy in that, and I thought that's what was so enjoyable. But there's different kinds of comedy. You can even find comedy, believe it or not, in Breaking Bad. It's a dark comedy, but there's different levels of it. So comedy is incredibly important. It really is important. That's why it's when you find a great comedy, take it, make it if you can.
Hi, Mr. Stallone. Adrian from Grupo Imagen Multimedia. I'm wondering, talking about fights, talking about battles, what is the most challenging, the most difficult fight that Sylvestre Stallone has faced in your entire life?
In my real life?
Yeah.
Wow, God, we could be here for years. You have different fights. You have fights when you're very young about in the family. How do you find love, no love, it's difficult, so you have no identity, and everybody grows up with a kind of insecurity. And that insecurity never goes away. I don't care how big and popular, everyone always has that spot inside that is never going to get, it's like a baby's head, it never gets hard though. And that's called insecurity. That starts as a child. So the biggest fight, besides just living with pain sometimes and tragedy, but the fight that you have with yourself, I think, that never goes away is the one that is the sense of insecurity, sometimes loneliness. How do you fight that? And it never goes away. It's just something you try to manage like a cold, and then it comes back when you don't want it to. So that to me is the fight, and I know it sounds complicated that I fight all the time, and I think every performer does, and every human being has that problem. And it takes strength to overcome it, but it never goes away. Never.
Thank you. La última pregunta, por favor.
Sí, aquí. Yo soy Lucy Guillén del Sol de Acapulco. What remembrance do you have from Rambo here in Acapulco?
I remember watching the stuntman jump off the roof of Carlos and Charlie's a lot. There was a great deal of craziness in that movie. It was a very brave man. But I think the most amazing one was when we dropped, they actually took a waterfall and put so many bombs and gasoline, whatever, the fire actually blew up and I had to dive off a waterfall, otherwise it'd very badly burned. That was amazing. That was unbelievable. So I have that memory, and I have the memory of taking the helicopter and we're flying into the village where I'm trying to save the prisoners, and the helicopter hits a tree. It's a tree, and I said, "Oh my God, Rambo's gonna die today." And it was like, "They pulled us and go, get this stupid helicopter out of here, man!" And we just managed to get over the trees and land. That's just a little too real for my blood. A little too real.
And I saw a pair of pictures with you at the baby also.
You do?
Having fun in Acapulco.
Oh yeah, that's right, with baby oil, thank you. I did. I almost lived at your club, it was great, thank you. I wish I still could go to your club.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.